This is my first encounter, and your presence feels overwhelmingly vast to me. Hello, my name is Lily, and I am 18 years old. My life has always been serene and modest. It's been just my father and me since my mother left long ago, disappearing as if she had dissolved into thin air, leaving behind only empty spaces that my father and I have filled with love and care. We've always been inseparable, like two ships sailing the same stormy sea, steering each other through rough waters. A few months ago, I began my university journey. It was a significant shift for someone like me, used to the comfort of our small, protected world. The change was profound. Lectures, meeting new people, and navigating crowded corridors felt thrilling, yet intimidating. My father was proud of my efforts, though I could sense his quiet struggle with loneliness whenever I came home. His warm smile would light up my world. However, university life soon became all-consuming. I started going to parties mostly out of curiosity. The atmosphere was unlike anything I'd ever known. Loud music, unfamiliar faces, and an intoxicating sense of freedom that filled the air. It was a new side of life I'd never explored. After one of my first parties, I came home late, when the city was hushed and still. My father was in the kitchen sitting with a cup of tea waiting for me. His face was kind, but I could see the worry beneath it. "How was the party?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "It was fun," I replied, keeping details to myself. He nodded, and a quiet settled over us. There was an unfamiliar tension, which I chose to ignore. Each time I left the house in the evenings, that same unease returned, as if he feared the outside world might change me. That night began like the others. Vibrant music, dancing, and a cocktail in my hand. But this time, I let myself go a little further. The alcohol's warmth gave me a boldness and ease, as if the whole world bent to my smile. When I got home late, the door was unlocked, as it always was when my father waited up. He was in the living room working on his laptop, the soft glow of the lamp highlighting his features. Even at that hour, he looked composed and assured. His broad shoulders and toned frame, along with the tattoos peeking out from under his shirt sleeves, spoke to his dedication to staying fit. His thick, dark hair was neatly styled, with a few silver streaks that only added to his allure. I skipped into the room and, coming up behind him, lightly tapped his shoulders. I laughed, stifling a giggle. My father flinched slightly, then broke into a warm chuckle, leaning forward in that familiar way he did when he was truly amused. "What are you up to?" he asked, catching the scent of my perfume mixed with the alcohol on my breath. "Living life to the fullest," I giggled, a slight dizziness washing over me. He stood, turning to face me, and placed his hands gently but firmly on my shoulders. His touch was warm and grounding, as if his hands were made to protect me from everything. His eyes shone with tenderness, but suddenly I noticed something different, something strange. There was something in the way his presence enveloped me, the way his smile broke through the last of my drunken haze, that made me pause. My laughter faded as I tilted my head back to meet his gaze. That look held everything: care, love, warmth, and a trace of reproach. But there was something more. Startled, I stepped back, trying to laugh it off to ease the moment. "You're always so serious. Lighten up a little," I said, waving my hand dismissively before heading to my room. But once behind my closed door, I lay on my bed for what felt like hours, an indescribable feeling lingering inside me. His calm yet commanding voice broke through my thoughts. "Lily, go take a shower. You need to freshen up," he said, tilting his head as he spoke. I nodded faintly, avoiding his gaze, and the sight of his strong arms crossed over his chest. His concern had always felt like more than just duty, but today it carried a different weight. I went to the bathroom, leaving the door slightly ajar, as was our habit. We'd always shared an unspoken trust. I turned on the water, letting the hot stream wrap around me, its warmth blending with the swirl of emotions in my mind. Under the shower, my thoughts drifted to him. His hands which had held me so firmly moments before, and his smile which seemed to pierce my very core. Each droplet that touched my skin felt charged with his presence, as if his touch lingered. I stepped deeper into the cascade, feeling its weight on my neck and shoulders. As the warm flow enveloped me, it spread heat through my body. My thoughts were consumed by him. His image filled my mind, seeping into every part of me. I tried to focus on the water's sensation and its sound as it fell, but his smile and voice remained vivid, ever present in my thoughts. I caught a movement out of the corner of my eye. Through the narrow gap in the door, I saw my father watching me, his expression soft yet intense, a faint smile on his lips as if he was surprised by his own presence there. My heart seemed to stop and I took a deep breath, making no move to cover myself. The water flowed over my skin, but in that moment it felt different, as if his gaze infused it. We locked eyes and time seemed to freeze. Memories of our easy, open connection flooded back with just a glance. His smile, full of gentle warmth, had always been my greatest treasure. Even as a child, he loved to cuddle close, playfully saying, "Lily, you're my favourite person in the world," waiting patiently for my reply. Back then, he always made time for us to share something meaningful. We'd walk through the park hand in hand, as if we could protect each other from the world beyond our little bubble. Those walks were my favourite. We'd always stop at the small ice cream shop. "Chocolate," he'd say with a grin that showed the tiny dimple in his cheek. I'd choose chocolate too, creating a quiet tradition between us. When my ice cream inevitably melted onto my hands, he'd chuckle softly, wiping my sticky fingers with a napkin. He never spoke ill of my mother even after she left. He somehow found the strength to say she'd simply chosen a different life, that it didn't mean I wasn't important to her. But I knew those words weren't true. I saw the change in his eyes whenever her name came up, how he hid his pain to protect me. To me, my mother was like a shadow, someone who vanished, leaving us behind. I couldn't understand how she could leave a man who was such an extraordinary father. Over time, my resentment toward her grew, but he never encouraged it. Instead, he taught me kindness. Despite hiding his own heart's scars, he showed me what love truly meant. Even when his capacity to give was strained, reflecting on those moments, I realized the profound impact he had on my life. His kindness, his smile, and the love he gave became the foundation of my world. As the water streamed over me, I stood there, soaking in the warmth of that realization, with my father still nearby. His smile carried a subtle apology for intruding on such a private moment, yet his gaze held steady. A wave of unease hit me, but, in a strangely calm voice, I said, "Come in." He hesitated at the bathroom door, glancing at me briefly before quickly looking away, grabbing a chair nearby. He picked up a towel and said, "You're soaked." His voice was familiar and steady, but I caught a slight tremor of nervousness. Moving carefully as if afraid to startle me, he came closer and began drying me with the towel, starting at my shoulders and arms, slowly moving downward. His touch felt familiar, yet there was a strange newness to it that I couldn't name. I studied his face, noting the sharp line of his cheekbones and the strength in his jaw, and felt something unfamiliar stir within me. Every movement he made was gentle and deliberate. When he leaned closer to dry the droplets on my neck, I felt a warmth that was overwhelming and indescribable, as if we'd stepped into a space where normal rules no longer applied. The thought, "This is wrong," flashed through my mind. It's forbidden. But I couldn't look away from him. His body, which I'd seen countless times, now seemed different. His muscles defined under his t-shirt, and the faint tattoos peeking from his sleeves caught my eye. He'd always been fit, but I'd never let myself notice him this way before. My pulse quickened, and I was sure he could feel it. For a moment he paused, still holding the towel, his eyes locking with mine. It was forbidden. Yet in that instant, it felt like the world had shed its rules. His hands, strong yet gentle, carried a warmth that lingered. Everything about the moment seemed to defy what should have been. As he started drying my hair, the tension in my body began to ease. His fingers moved gently over my scalp, smoothing my hair with such care that I couldn't help but close my eyes. Water dripped from the ends of my hair, but every motion of his hands felt intentional, as if he wanted this moment to last forever. When his fingers brushed the skin of my neck, a surge of warmth spread through me, reaching every part of my body. The tightness in my shoulders melted as I surrendered to the soothing sensation of his touch. The bathroom, bathed in soft light, felt like another world, small, enclosed, cut off from everything else. "Is it better?" he asked softly, his voice barely audible yet so close. I nodded, eyes still closed. My breathing had steadied, but my heart still raced, like the flutter of a small bird. His every movement carried more than just care. I could feel it in the way his hands lingered briefly before moving on. "You need to rest," he said after a pause, draping the towel over my shoulders. I opened my eyes and looked up at him. His face was close, his gaze so piercing that it took my breath away. "Thank you," I whispered, hardly recognizing my own voice. He smiled, a faint crease forming on his face, the smile that had always comforted me. But now it stirred something deeper, something I couldn't ignore. The moment felt fragile, almost dreamlike, yet unforgettable. We stood so close that I could hear his steady, warm breaths mingling with the soft sound of water dripping from my hair. My thoughts were scattered, spilling over like the water pooling at our feet. Time seemed to pause, leaving just the two of us in this intimate space. My eyes met his, and there was something new in his expression, something I hadn't seen before, or perhaps hadn't allowed myself to see. It wasn't just care or love, it was something stronger, something that broke through the walls I'd carefully built in my mind. Who crossed the line first? Was it me? Or was it inevitable? I leaned forward, my heart pounding. My breath caught as my lips met his. For a fleeting moment I thought he might pull away, but he didn't. Instead, his hands rested lightly on my shoulders before drawing me closer. He returned the kiss, soft but certain, as if reassuring me that he felt the same. Everything around us, the reminders of reality, faded away. There were no more rules, no boundaries, only the overwhelming sensation enveloping us like the warm steam in the air. My heart swelled with something entirely new, something powerful and undeniable. His warmth and touch became a part of me, as natural as breathing. As we parted, I saw his gaze deepen, revealing something he'd perhaps kept hidden until now. "Lily," he murmured, his voice so tender that I knew nothing between us would ever be the same. His hands tightened around my waist, and a wave of heat rushed through me, leaving no room for doubt about the weight of this moment. This wasn't the chaotic drunkenness I'd felt earlier. This was something entirely different. My heartbeat aligned with his, and every touch seemed to deepen the connection between us. When I looked at him, there was no hesitation. The emotions I'd tried to suppress, everything I'd kept locked away, now poured out freely. He felt it too. I could see it in his eyes and in the way his fingers trembled slightly, yet held firm. My mind was clear. The haze of alcohol had long faded, but a new kind of intoxication had taken hold, a powerful, all-consuming passion that enveloped us both. My breath grew heavier as he pulled me closer. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice soft, low and hesitant, as if afraid to shatter the delicate moment. I nodded, but it wasn't enough. Placing my hand on his chest, I felt his heart racing as fiercely as mine. "Yes," I said, as his hands moved higher. His fingers traced the lines of my body, but his touch remained careful, as if he feared I might vanish like morning mist. Yet I was fully present, every part of me alive. In that moment, the water still flowing around us, he guided me from the bathroom, and the air outside felt cool against our warm skin. I felt only him. His steps were soft but deliberate as he carried me gently to his room. He laid me on the bed with the reverence of someone performing a sacred act, every movement slow and intentional. His hand brushed along my face, pausing at my chin, and he leaned in to meet my gaze. "Lily," he whispered, his voice deep and tender, and I pulled him closer, unable to bear even a moment's separation. Nothing held us back. We became one, not just in passion, but in the unspoken understanding that something extraordinary had always existed between us. The room was quiet, broken only by our breaths. Soft light filtered through the curtains, wrapping us in a warmth that felt timeless. The bed beneath us felt like an island, cut off from the vast world beyond the closed door. He leaned in, his breath grazing my skin, his touch confident yet gentle, as if memorizing every curve of my body. Each caress sent ripples through me, awakening every cell with a pulse of warmth. My heart pounded loudly, and I was certain he could hear it. Yet his gaze held no haste, only endless tenderness. His eyes were so piercing that I felt completely exposed, far beyond the physical. His fingers traced the curve of my face, gliding over my cheeks before pausing at my chin to lift my face. He locked eyes with me, and the moment was filled with a silent understanding that nothing held us back anymore. He leaned in again, and our lips met in a kiss that was slower, deeper, and filled with a tenderness that made my chest ache. His hands slid down my shoulders, every touch deliberate, leaving me trembling beneath him. It was as if he could sense exactly what I felt, responding with such care that I was overwhelmed. The air between us grew warmer, thicker, charged with an almost magical energy that seemed to hum around us. Our movements were slow and deliberate, as if we wanted to carve every second into our memories. In that moment, we were perfectly aligned, a seamless union where nothing felt forced. Warmth surrounded me, and I knew this memory would stay with me forever. He was so open, so boundless. We lay side by side, wrapped in silence, but it wasn't an empty silence. It was a quiet that spoke louder than words. His hand rested lightly on my waist as I stared at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. My thoughts were tangled, caught between reality and the meaning of it all. Yet, in that moment, I felt no regret or shame, only the warmth and peace he always brought into my life. Turning my head, I looked at him. His face was calm, but his eyes, meeting mine, said so much more. I felt him whisper, as if he understood every thought I wanted to share. I felt it too. Maybe it was wrong. But he didn't finish, and everything that needed saying had already been expressed through our touches, our caresses, and the way we looked at each other. "What's next?" I asked softly, my gaze steady. His eyes softened, and a faint smile touched his lips as he reached out to stroke my hair. "We're not in a rush," he said. "We'll go on living as we always have, but now we know this moment is ours alone. It's something we'll carry in silence." No one would ever know what happened between us tonight, but I could never hide it within myself. It had become a part of me. He pulled me closer, and I rested my head on his shoulder. The steady rhythm of his heartbeat was comforting, despite the many unanswered questions looming ahead. One thing I knew for certain: this was our moment, our secret, untouched by the outside world. The space between us was filled with something indescribable, yet undeniably strong, growing with every breath. The silence wasn't heavy. It had become a quiet witness to something others could never understand. His hand moved gently along my waist, a reminder that this wasn't a dream but a reality we'd both chosen to embrace. I studied his face, searching for confirmation that he felt the same, and found it in the soft lines around his eyes and the slight curve of his lips in a calm, knowing smile. "Do you regret it?" I whispered, barely able to voice the question. His gaze met mine with a certainty I didn't have. "No, Lily, not for what's real," he said, dissolving the last traces of doubt. We didn't talk about the future or make plans, but I knew this moment would live in us forever. With my eyes closed, I felt his breath blending with mine, and the world around us seemed to soften and hush. Though the path ahead was uncertain, one truth remained: this moment was ours alone. His fingers traced the curve of my waist, leaving a trail of warmth that echoed through me. The sensation of his breath against my skin kept me anchored in the now. Life reveals that not every moment can be orchestrated, and sometimes the unexpected sweeps you away. Those instances can transform everything. That evening was one such instance. Eddie had departed for a 3-day training abroad, leaving me accustomed to the solitude of our home. Yet something about that night felt distinct. I sat alone in the living room, savouring a glass of wine as soft music filled the air. The faint glow of candles danced around me, their flickering light my only companion in the quiet. Dressed in a delicate nightgown, I sought comfort, yearning to embrace the stillness and find a trace of warmth in my solitude. Since Charlie's passing 8 years prior, nights like these had become my sanctuary, a way to face the loneliness that had woven itself into my existence. But that evening, just as I settled into my thoughts, the doorbell chimed. Opening the door, I found Philippe standing there. For a heartbeat, I stood still, my gaze fixed on him, grappling with his unexpected presence. He stood before me, clutching Eddie's files and computer bag. His dark jacket hugged his broad shoulders flawlessly, and his slightly dishevelled hair lent him an effortless allure he always seemed to exude. Felipe, Eddie's longtime friend, appearing at my doorstep like this was entirely unforeseen. "Felipe, what brings you here so late?" I asked, my voice betraying my astonishment. He offered a courteous smile. "Hi, Amy. Eddie and I have been collaborating on a project. I finished my part and didn't want to keep these, so I thought I'd drop them off." For a moment, I wavered. "Oh, right, of course, please, come in." "It's late, and I wouldn't want you lingering outside," I added, stepping aside to let him enter. As I shut the door, I suddenly grew conscious of my appearance, standing in the gentle candlelight in my nightgown. I tried to dismiss the thought, but I noticed Felipe's eyes linger on me for a fleeting moment before he averted his gaze. Entering the living room, Felipe took in the ambience. The candles, the wine, and a subtle smile crossed his face. "It seems I've intruded on a cosy evening," he remarked with a touch of playfulness. "Not at all," I replied swiftly, placing my wineglass on the table. "It was just a quiet night. These moments have been my refuge since Charlie passed. But honestly, I'm glad you're here. I haven't had the chance to really know you." Felipe nodded, his smile softening. "Yeah, we haven't spent much time together, have we? Despite being around Eddie for years, I've always wanted to tell you how much I admire you. What you've done for Eddie, the way you've supported him, it's remarkable." I gestured for him to sit, and as he settled onto the couch, I retrieved another wineglass from the kitchen. Handing it to him and pouring wine, his calm, steady presence filled the space. There was an undeniable confidence in Felipe's demeanour, a magnetism that made his presence impossible to ignore. As we sipped wine and exchanged light conversation, the atmosphere began to shift. An unspoken tension hung in the air, palpable yet unvoiced. Felipe's gaze lingered on me a moment too long, and I felt warmth rise to my cheeks under his scrutiny. It was as if he wanted to speak, but the words remained trapped between us. Emotions I hadn't felt in years stirred within me. His attention, the warmth in his eyes, awakened something dormant. It was a stark reminder of my loneliness, of how deeply I missed such a connection. "Amy," he said at last, his voice gentle yet resolute. "Seeing you like this, alone, it doesn't feel right. You're such a strong, extraordinary woman, yet I sense your solitude. It doesn't seem just." His words struck me like a tide, leaving me momentarily speechless, my eyes locked on his. My breath caught as the room seemed to close in around us. The moment was entirely unexpected. I didn't know how to respond. "Felipe, I understand what you're trying to say," I finally managed, my voice soft but steady. "But this is my choice. Sometimes loneliness feels like a shield." Felipe tilted his head, his eyes thoughtful. "Perhaps loneliness isn't always the best shield," he said quietly. The air between us crackled with something indescribable. His gaze held a warmth, a pull, and I knew it wasn't my imagination. But should it remain just that? The intensity both thrilled and unnerved me. This story was far from concluded. That night, Felipe's warm gaze lingered in my mind. Speaking with someone so authentic left an impression I couldn't articulate. His words about loneliness resonated deeply. How could someone like him, strong, successful, feel alone? Curiosity got the better of me, and I leaned forward slightly. Felipe, why are you alone? You're 37, tall, charismatic, successful, intelligent, mature. What woman could possibly refuse you? As the words left my lips, I locked eyes with him, awaiting his response. Felipe's expression grew serious, though a faint smile tugged at his lips. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Amy, sometimes loneliness feels like a choice, but in truth, it's about not finding the right person, he said, his voice soft and reflective. Maybe I've been too selective, or perhaps the right person has always been near, but difficult to see. His words startled me, hinting at something I was too afraid to acknowledge. A faint blush crept across my face, but I managed a small smile. I don't know, Felipe. Any woman who truly knows you would be foolish to let you go. A man like you shouldn't be alone. Felipe's gaze held mine for an eternity. And you, Amy? He asked abruptly. Why are you alone? You've been on your own for years. How easy has it been to choose that? His question caught me off guard and I hesitated. I'm 60, and I've seen loneliness as a safe harbour, I said, my voice faltering. After Charlie, I couldn't imagine letting someone in again, but sometimes my words trailed off as our eyes met unintentionally. His gaze held a warmth, a pull I couldn't ignore. The tension in the air was almost tangible. That's how the night with Felipe ended, leaving a whirlwind of unanswered questions. As I lay in bed, the weight of our exchange pressed on me. Guilt mingled with undeniable excitement, feelings I hadn't permitted myself in years. That conversation with Felipe changed everything. Days passed, but my mind replayed that night. His words, his gaze, etched themselves into my being. No matter how I tried to suppress those emotions, each interaction with him only deepened them. While Eddie was consumed with work, Felipe and I continued talking, sometimes over coffee, sometimes in his car, or during long phone calls. It felt natural, effortless, as if connecting with him required no strain. Yet with each meeting, a deeper feeling grew. This wasn't mere friendship, it was something more. Every time I heard his voice or saw his familiar smile, my heart raced. These feelings had transcended innocent camaraderie, and keeping it from Eddie was the hardest part. Building such a bond with my son's best friend, was it wrong, or was life offering me a second chance? Our last meeting remained vivid. We sat side by side in his car, sipping coffee, talking. That day, we grew closer than ever, so close that Felipe's gaze lingered on my lips. My breath caught, my heart pounding wildly. In that moment, the space between us nearly vanished, but we both pulled back. The magic lingered before we parted ways. After that night, Felipe went silent. When his message finally arrived, it carried weight beyond its brevity. An address and a few words. Amy, meet me here tonight at 8. I'll be waiting. There's a place I want to share just with you. Reading those words, a storm brewed within me. My hands trembled, my heart raced so fiercely I could barely breathe. Every word held certainty. This was a pivotal moment. The spark was both terrifying and exhilarating. I knew what he meant. This wasn't an ordinary meeting. Should I go? Deep down, I already knew. Preparing for the evening felt transformative. I chose a sleek, form-fitting black dress, bold with an off-the-shoulder design, ending just above my knees, graceful yet daring. In the mirror, I realized it had been ages since I felt this alluring. My hair fell in loose waves, my makeup light, but my lips bore bold red lipstick. I was certain Felipe's eyes would stay on me all night. I'm doing this for him, I whispered, calming the excitement within. But I knew it was for me too. I wanted to feel desirable, passionate, alive. At the address, Felipe waited in his car. Our eyes met, and something stirred within me. His sleeves were rolled up, one hand resting casually on the steering wheel, his gaze warm and determined. He stepped out, opened my door, and extended his hand. "Come on, Amy," he said softly. "There's something special I want to share tonight." My fingers trembled as I took his hand, but his touch steadied me. We drove in silence, the night enveloping us. Half an hour later, Felipe stopped. "We're here," he said, a spark of excitement in his eyes. Before me was a breathtaking view, a small house nestled between mountains, its lights glowing warmly. The night air brushed my face as Felipe guided me toward it. Inside, I was awestruck. The house was a masterpiece. High ceilings, moonlight streaming through large windows, warm wooden accents, a glowing fireplace. The walls held art in natural tones. A glass coffee table stood elegantly, surrounded by sophisticated furniture, a chic dining table set perfectly. "Did you design this?" I asked, my eyes brimming with emotion. Felipe smiled. "Lead? Yes, but only now have I had someone as special as you to share it with." I was speechless. Everything resonated with my taste, and I let myself be swept into the moment's magic. Felipe gestured to the couch, the fireplace crackling, the atmosphere like a fairy tale. He returned with 2 glasses and red wine. As he poured, he leaned closer. "Amy, I asked you here because I can't keep hiding what I feel," he said, his voice deep and resolute, my eyes locked onto his. "Felipe," I whispered, but he stopped me. "No, let me say this. This house, this night, it's all for you. You've captivated me beyond anything else." My heart pounded so fiercely I could hardly breathe. His words dismantled every barrier within me. Seeing you alone, feeling your solitude, it drew me closer every day. Now I can't run from it. Can't run. The tension peaked. Felipe's eyes revealed everything, no more hiding. As he leaned toward my lips, I forgot to breathe. The moment arrived. Our lips nearly met when I pulled back slightly. "Felipe, we need to be sure," I said, my voice trembling, but he was steadfast. "I'm sure, Amy, absolutely sure. Absolutely." I didn't know how the night would end, but it was destined to be unforgettable. When Felipe's lips met mine, everything shifted. A firework ignited within me, a passion dormant for years bursting alive. His kiss was deep, intense, and I wanted only to be in his arms. My hands wrapped around his neck as he pulled me closer, his grip firm with desire. "Amy," he whispered, his lips trailing down my neck, "you're so beautiful. How did I not see how captivating you are?" His voice, rich with passion and tenderness, intensified my emotions. I leaned into his ear, my breath unsteady. "Felipe, you're so handsome. Thank you for making me feel this way." My words shook with honesty. I surrendered to the moment's fire. The wine glass tipped, crimson spilling across the table, but it didn't matter. The world had stopped. It was just us. Felipe's hands slid my dress off my shoulders, his touch warm against my skin. The dress fell, leaving me vulnerable. I reached for his shirt, unbuttoning it with trembling fingers, marveling at his broad shoulders and toned chest. "You're incredible," I whispered, our eyes locked. His warm, disarming smile captivated me. In the bedroom, nothing could stop us. As I lay back, Felipe leaned over me, his eyes a mix of passion and admiration. His fingers brushed my cheek, his lips finding mine again, intense yet tender. "Amy," he murmured, "being with you. I can't describe it, but I'll never forget this." Everything accelerated. His warmth radiated through me, and I let out a sound louder than intended, gripping the sheets. Felipe focused on his movements, both of us breathless. I couldn't count how many times I trembled, the intensity overwhelming. I dug my nails into his back, knowing the cabin was far from prying ears. I didn't hold back, telling Felipe I wanted to feel every ounce of warmth within me. Flushed and breathless, he nodded, letting go. The experience left me exhausted, spent, but perfect. Felipe lay beside me, his arm gently around my shoulder as we caught our breath. Staring at the ceiling, the silence spoke volumes. He turned to me. "What happens now?" he asked softly, concern in his voice. What will we tell Eddie? Is this our secret forever? I met his gaze, his face a mix of fear and hope. Running my fingers across his face, I smiled faintly. Felipe, I said with quiet resolve, tonight I just want to be here with you. I reached for my phone, typing to Eddie, I'm staying at a friend's tonight, don't worry. Sending it, calm and excitement washed over me. We lost ourselves in what we'd shared. The next morning held uncertainties, but for now, we left the future's questions silent. This story isn't over. It's just beginning. If you've reached this point, it's touched you deeply. More awaits, so don't miss it. Follow, turn on notifications, and share your thoughts in a comment.